Dr. Askew is a radiologist, interventional radiologist that practices in a lot of pain management and does practice of cancer pain and does a lot of pain pumps for cancer patients. And he'll be going over the view of targeted drug delivery. Okay, we'll have that up shortly here.
In 2006, I had been a practicing military physician for approximately 9 years, and that's when I met patient Jay. He'd be someone who changed the way I thought about medicine for the rest of my practice. Patient Jay had been a forward air controller in Vietnam, which means he called out fire control missions behind enemy lines for incoming aircraft. When we met, however, he had the unfortunate diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer with intractable pain, which worsened his PTSD. So I set him up for a trial of intrathecal fentanyl. He did really well, had a reduction of his symptoms, and went on to placement of a pump. He resumed some components of normal living, interacting with his family and his beloved granddaughters. 6 months later, however, his son stopped by and told me that his dad had passed peacefully. But in 2006, patient Jay and this technology changed my life. So let's talk about intrathecal targeted drug delivery. I'm Dr. Askew, and these are my stories. So what I'd like to talk about just briefly this morning, a little bit of history on intrathecal targeted drug delivery or intrathecal pain pump. Types of pain I'm typically seeing, a brief glimpse at some data, compare and contrast the pump technology that exists currently, what does a typical placement look like for me in the operating room, and a friend shared some of his findings with me concerning several pancreatic patients he had followed. So you can see in 1885, we see one of the first descriptions of intrathecal anesthetic. In 1901, intraspinal morphine was reported. But we move all the way up to 79 before we see intraspinal morphine for cancer pain. Then 82 and 91, Medtronic's reported and then released to the market their intrathecal pain pump. 2006, I placed my first pump, which was a Medtronic, and in 2012, a second pump, which is now being marketed by Flowonix, was introduced. And this is the real issue. In the United States, we see that predominantly we are using the world's hydrocodone. I'm not saying that we have more pain than the rest of the world, but we certainly use more of the oral opioids. And in that group, though, you see 3 out of 4 people do report some type of misuse or using of other people's medication. That subsequently led us to the death rates that we're seeing now. And you can see back in 2002, 10, 12,000 deaths. And at that point, still motor vehicle accidents really represent the majority of deaths in the United States. Now we see in 2017 that we're expecting to see, or that we did see greater than 70,000 deaths related to opioid overdose. So typically the types of pain I'm seeing, you can see here, this is a patient with pancreatic malignancy and pancreatic ductal dilatation. This patient had renal cell carcinoma and subsequent pain following treatment and ablation. And then just a lot of the run-of-the-mill chronic spinal issues, everything from multiple fractures to post-laminectomy syndrome. So looking at data, we see that there's a high prevalence of cancer pain, greater than 1 million patients. As you trickle down to the bottom, you see that those people who would meet criteria greater than 3 months life expectancy, we're seeing on average greater than 160, probably now approaching 200,000 patients per year, with less than 1% of them having adequate pain control as they reported. The majority of that being significantly pancreatic cancer pain, solid organ pain, excuse me, and a bone metastasis, which is quite painful. You also see in 2015 that the NCCN guidelines did include intrathecal route of opioid administration, and it's become a valuable tool. So when we look at some of the data presented by late Lisa Stearns and Dr. Statz, you see that when patients were evaluated into 2 typical groups, chronic, typical medical management, and then targeted drug delivery, we see in pain reduction, reduced toxicity, and in survival that there were improvements associated with intrathecal targeted drug delivery. You also see significant reduction in resource utilization as a person approaches end of life. So the pump technologies that exist. Medtronic uses the peristaltic continuous pump, which has a roller which delivers medication into the intrathecal space, whereas the Flowonic pump has a chamber which has internal pressure, and there are two gates that open, a gate that fills and then a gate that's timed based on known concentration of medication and duration of gate opening. That results in delivery of medication. But what that also results in is a greater distribution. We'll talk about that briefly. So you see in a typical 24-hour period, Medtronic pump delivers that medication continuously, but the Flowonics pump typically delivers 50 microboluses per day, spaced every 30 minutes. And what some of that has demonstrated is that there's a lower significant adverse event reporting, typically that being granuloma. Also that we see a reduced escalation of medication in people who have bolus delivery. So a typical placement, positioning is really important. I will have them in a decubitus position after gaining access, and that's kind of the most important thing. We won't even open the pump until we've gained access, and sometimes that has been difficult to the point where I had to leave the OR and either evaluate imaging or repeat imaging to find an appropriate access. Subsequently, I've marked the patient's abdomen prior to the procedure so that I can anticipate skin movement. Obviously, as you place the patient in a decubitus position, there is some skin movement. Next, I'll tunnel the catheter. The pump is connected and test it to make sure that we truly are still in the intrathecal space. And subsequently, that pump is placed within the anterior pocket, irrigated copiously. I'll make sure that I do a sturdy deep layer, interrupt it, and then I do a running subcuticular layer as well. Then also you see basically at that point, I can clearly see where the pump is under the skin, but I'll also perform ultrasound just to evaluate that the pump is actually sitting appropriately in its pocket. I've actually had some patients who come in at first evaluation and the pump has flipped. The other thing is after fill, I'll check the pocket just to make sure there's been no inadvertent pump pocket fill. Now, just a little bit of data. A colleague of mine shared the case of 18 patients who had pancreatic cancer and had subsequent intrathecal pump placement. You see in stage 4 pancreatic malignancy, there's about an average 2.5 month survival. Visceral pain is probably the most common issue encountered from a pain perspective. Many of these patients suffer significantly, and they're taking really high doses of IV and oral medications. And what they find themselves is typically more sedated than they want to be, especially at that kind of terminal point in their life. So looking at 18 patients, preponderance of them being female, about 61 years old, you can kind of see the race breakdown. And what he found at the end was about a 12.5 month survival in those 18 patients versus the 2.5 typically reported. Obviously, we need more perspective in randomized controlled data, but it's hard to kind of create those cohorts when you can tell when a patient has any knowledge that they may have better outcome with the pump. And so just as a business builder, I'm in a private practice now, and a lot of these patients, even though this is very satisfying to me, a lot of these patients then present to me as an interventional radiologist for other issues of pain, other issues of vascular disease and my diabetics. And so this becomes a significant component of business building. But one of the biggest problems is making those relationships with local oncologists. But what I find is significant quality of life improvement and better pain control. So this has been really kind of a brief survey of the intrathecal pain pump. Certainly, hopefully Glenn will have my data, my information. So if there are any questions from the audience later, or even once this COVID madness clears, I've actually had physicians down to follow me, see what the pump practice looks like. You can gain significantly better insight following that. And go Pfizer. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, I do. Specifically with some of the, I have a slight bias now, and I just got to put that forward because I like the bolus distribution versus the peristaltic distribution, because what it's shown is you have a greater distribution in the intrathecal space. And so typically, you know, I've had patients who presented on greater than 500, 600 morphine equivalent dose, and then they leave on anywhere from 50 to 100 micrograms of fentanyl per day. When you divide it over a 24-hour period, you basically see that is a very small dosing.